welcome back to another episode of Unlimited Abundance with your host, Polina. I am a coach, healer, leader, and jewelry designer of the company Lift Your Frequency Crystal Jewelry. Welcome back. I am so excited for today's episode. I'm in my ovulatory phase, you guys, so I'm feeling frisky and fresh, have a lot to share. In today's episode, we're going to talk about 3 changes to completely transform your life that you can do literally starting today, and things that I not only have implemented in my life, but I keep coming back to if I ever feel like I'm moving away from them. And whenever I'm working with clients or in courses, I always find that it's one or all of these influences that are leading to a lot of, I know the word suffering is intense, but it's the only word that really kind of feels appropriate, but they're leading to a lot of suffering in people's lives. And so whether that's on a small scale or whether it's unconsciously, but ultimately a lack of fulfillment or just feeling stuck or stagnant or uninspired or off track, all those other emotions, I'm just going to label as suffering. I know that's kind of an intense word to use, but that's kind of, I feel like, a way that we can understand. And these are things that I feel like are really going to click for you. And I'm sure that when you're listening to this, you're going to pick one or maybe even all of them and immediately know what those changes are, those exact changes that you need to make. I promise you, as you listen, you're gonna be like, oh, this. And this is why I love episodes like this, where we really talk about tangible things instantly and immediately, because you leave the podcast not just feeling motivated, which is beautiful in itself, but with kind of this path already of changes that you're going to make, and you can already see results very quickly. So let's get into this episode. I'm so excited. Today, also, if you're listening to this on November 7th, today the Radiant Reset launched. And you're probably wondering, what is the Radiant Reset? Unless you follow me on Instagram, and in that case, you may know. So if you've been following me for a long time, then you may know I used to release a lot of guides. I released like 2 really kind of well-known guides, Body by PB, a nutrition guide, and then I released the 21-day reset, which was my kind of like more plant-based 21-day reset, also focused on like energetic healing, eating with the chakras, like eating each day in alignment with the chakras, having a plant-based reset, all that kind of stuff. And those are very food-focused guides, and they're still really, really amazing. I think they're great guides, and I'm so happy that they're out. However, I knew that the next guide I was going to release, whenever it was going to be really radically life-changing. I know that's a big term to throw around, and I totally understand, but I genuinely knew if I'm going to release another guide, it's not going to just be a replica of something else. It's not going to be just a little BS guide, no offense, that just has like regurgitated information. It's going to be something that is truly unique and is truly like from my soul. And so that moment finally came when I received inspiration for this guide, which like I said, it's called the Radiant Reset. And this guide is not just a health guide or anything like that, or a food-based guide. It's actually like a spiritual 14-day spiritual kind of reset, right? And so what this guide looks like is it has 14 days of guided elevated practices. So I know that these are just words, and I don't want to share what the practices are, obviously, because they're inside the guide, but ultimately it walks you through like day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way through day 14. And each day there are 3 little practices to do. They vary each day, and they're centered around wellness, they're centered around meditation, around spirituality, various different practices that are simple, that everyone can do no matter what their schedule is. Hopefully, I mean, obviously, if like your schedule, you have literally not 1 minute for yourself, then it may be difficult, but they're designed to be accessible for a variety of different people, whether you're a student, whether you work full-time, whether you're a mom, whether you're a business owner, or anything in between. They're really designed that they're simple yet elevated and really unique in the way that they're structured, practices that you can do anytime and hopefully almost anywhere. This guy is going to walk you through like day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way through day 14. And each day there'll be 3 various practices, right? And these practices are very simple, yet super effective and genuinely very, very life-changing. These practices include a variety of different, maybe things like movement or different meditations. And I've personally taken meditations that I've loved and have channeled and have worked with myself, and that have been really, really powerful. And these practices include a lot of elements like movement, like spirituality, mindfulness, meditation, all those kinds of things. And again, those are just labels. It's like, it's hard to label something that is very, I guess, unique to you. But there are, for example, I believe I want to say 4 meditations that I explain that's also in the guide that are, let's say one day it'll say like blank meditation, and then down at the bottom of the guide I'll explain how to do that meditation. They're meditations that I personally love to do, that I interchange in my life consistently. If you're inside Divinity, you know I channel meditations pretty much every single month inside the ceremonies. They're literally channeled on the spot, so they're not like something that's, that's, I guess, from anywhere else. They're very unique every time. And the meditations that I included in the Radiant Reset are also some of my favorite and most potent meditations, right? So there's like a love bubble meditation and some other kind of meditations. I don't want to share them because they're really unique to the guide. And then there's also inside it journaling sessions. So I think journaling prompts are great, but I think that when there's a journaling session, meaning it's a specific time and space focused on a specific kind of intention or outcome or something that you're reflecting on, it is much more powerful than just asking yourself kind of random questions. And so there's like, I believe 8 different journaling sessions that I've included in there. And under each session, there's a variety of prompts, usually 5 prompts that I have myself curated, that I ask myself, and I literally journal, that I do with clients, like I said, and inside courses and things like that. There's some like really, really new, never before seen kind of stuff in there as well. So an example of one day might be, like I said, like blank meditation, blank journaling session, and then some other practice, right? And so they're kept very simple, and also the time is kept very simple, right? It's not going to say like do a 40-minute blank meditation or do like an hour of this, right? They're much smaller time frames on purpose to keep it really accessible and things that you will commit to, right? Because if you make your reset something that's completely like super intense and really difficult to commit to, obviously it's going to be much more difficult to move through it. And so I've on purpose kept the practices simple yet really effective and also well-rounded. So they're not just all focused in one area. They're not all just movement things. They're not all just meditation things, or it's not all just journaling things. Like they're kind of layered and intertwined and curated throughout the 2 weeks to really create a powerful transformation, like I said. So the guide is essentially an ebook, and you'll receive day 1 through 14 with all the practices. Under it, you'll receive the meditations explained, and then under that, in the guide, you'll also have all of those journaling sessions with all the prompts in each session. So it's quite an extensive guide. I believe it's around 20 pages, so it's not short. It's definitely, you really are getting so much value inside of it. And my favorite part of this and my inspiration behind it is that I find that a lot of us, and it's just normal throughout our just seasons of our lives, we can fall off. We can start to feel uninspired. We can feel stagnant. We can feel stuck. We can feel like we're in a funk. And that's very normal, because unless we're consciously really moving energy, like literally in all aspects of our lives, mentally, physically, and emotionally, it's very easy to get stuck. Like it's definitely a commitment in life, I think, to really continuously move your energy forward, because that is requiring you to take responsibility for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And it's work, right? That's a whole well-rounded thing. And this is why I've created this reset, because I see this with so many people who I work with. We just kind of, and myself too, we just start sometimes just feeling off, or just not as vibrant, not as radiant. Like it's like that essentially radiant. That's why I call it the radiant reset, just kind of dims down, and we're missing that kind of thriving, right? That energy of thriving, the energy of radiance within ourselves. And so this guide is really meant to bring you back to that space in 2 weeks. And so it's really, really beautiful. And also why I love it is because after the 2 weeks, I can promise you that you're going to find practices that you love, that you're going to want to just use daily. So you'll do the 2-week reset, right? And then after, you might be like, I loved this journaling session, or I loved this meditation, or I loved this practice, or I just loved this thing that on day 5, I love that practice. I want to do that daily. Most people who I ever give these kind of tips and techniques to fall in love with one or more of them and incorporate them as like a staple in their life. Like a lot of the things that are inside are things that I do daily. And I also rotate a lot of things that I share in the guide, also depending on how I'm feeling and what I'm inspired by. Like you'll see the journaling sessions, you'll see the meditations. I rotate all of those in my own personal life for when I'm feeling called to do different things. And so I'm so excited. And also, of course, you can always go back to it. So let's say you do it, you feel great, you take some practice that you love. Let's say in 6 months, you're feeling a little bit stuck again. You can pull this guide back out. You can do the reset fully again if you're feeling like it. You might just want to do a few days of it. You might just want to do 7 days of it. Like next June, you might be like, I'm feeling a little bit stagnant. I'm feeling a little bit stuck. Let me whip out the Radiance Reset and just do a few days of it and see what happens. So it's something that not only is going to create transformation, but it's something that has immense value and something that you can continuously go back to when you need it. And so I'm so passionate, and I've created it on purpose at a super affordable price. It's $15. I made it that way so it was as accessible as possible. I know a lot of my courses and other things are, you know, a little bit more of an investment for sure, but I wanted to create something that was just way more accessible. I know we're now in society, we're going through such a pivotal transformational time, and so I really wanted to have something that people could really just, you know, grab and have is going to add immense value. Like you can't really go wrong. You can't really say like it's $15 and it's going to be like such a huge return on your investment that it's almost like unbelievable and indescribable. And so I'm so excited. It's out now. It's an instant download, meaning as soon as you download it, you receive it, you can start it right away. And that's also what's really exciting to me is that people can start it whenever. Like you literally can be like, you know what, today I'm going to begin. And you can do the practices today because I mean, obviously if you download it at like midnight, you might want to wait till the next day. But like essentially you can begin pretty quickly, right? Whether it's that day or the next day, you can already get yourself on track and get yourself inspired. As you can see, I'm super passionate about it because it's something that I think is so, it's a lifestyle guide unlike anything else, in my opinion. And it's something I'm so proud of. And something, like I said, that not only are all those things I share, there are things that like I consistently use, like they're like staple tools in my own life and in my practices, but they're things that I've seen work with so many different people, and the results have been astounding. So to put together all this like juicy goodness and value in one place and at such an affordable price, I just think it's really exciting that this is out there, and I'm so excited to share with you. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, I know I already shared it on Instagram and so many of you guys are downloading it, which is so exciting. I'll have it in the keynotes if you're listening to this on the podcast, and if you're on YouTube and you're watching this in video format, which keep in mind if you are listening to this and you ever want to watch the video format, I always upload these in the long video format on YouTube, then you can do that as well. All right, we're gonna hop into the podcast, but it's just so exciting, you guys, and I genuinely like I'm on the edge of my seat thinking about what transformation people will go through, because I know these things work. It's like kind of like you already know it's going to work, and so it's really exciting to see people begin the guide, and I just can't wait to see over the next few weeks and months your result. Hop on into today's podcast episode. So 3 changes to make today to radically transform your life, right? The first one, and it's going to sound obvious, but it's so important that I just really want to drill it in, is movement. A really big realization that I've had, and I think that maybe it's one that's kind of obvious, but I think when you live it, you understand this even more, is that when you are stagnant physically, your energy is stagnant, and so it's harder to move your mental energy. So we're energetic beings. As you know, we have layers to our bodies. We have our physical body, we have our emotional body, we have our mental body, right? And you can feel all of these different ones. Like you can feel when you're mentally overwhelmed, but maybe you feel physically okay, right? When your mental body is overwhelmed. You can also feel when maybe your emotional body is overwhelmed. You can feel when your physical body is overwhelmed. You can feel these, they're almost like layers, right, to ourselves. And why movement is so powerful is it because it affects all 3 bodies, right? So when we have any kind of movement, right, like whether it's high intensity cardio or whether it's Pilates or yoga or running or going on a long walk or whatever it is, it begins to move the energy. So anywhere the energy might have been stuck or stagnant, or even like jump rope, I know is really great, especially for your lymphatic system, or even trampolining, like a small trampoline in our yard. I know that's really also great for your lymphatic system, but things that are just going to begin to move your energy are going to begin to affect all of these different fields. It's going to begin to, of course, affect your physical body. It's going to begin to affect your emotional body. It's going to begin to affect your mental body. I mean, that's, I think, why exercise has blown up so much as it has, and you know, different kinds of studios with different kinds of techniques and things like that are getting bigger and bigger. I think it's because people are realizing, like, even if they don't understand like the esoteric or kind of like metaphysical aspect behind it, they're like, my mind feels clear, I feel more energized, I feel happier, I feel more emotionally clear. So they're experiencing the effects, right, of exercise on all these various planes, and they're beginning to be like, whoa, this is really, really powerful. And so the more stagnant you are physically, the more difficult it's going to be to move your thoughts. This is also why I feel like people who, you know, are, I don't like really like even using this word, but have more like depressive symptoms are obviously way less likely oftentimes to do movement, which I get it. If you're not feeling good, the last thing you want to do is go do movement. Like I totally understand. Like I literally, like I get it when you're not feeling good and someone's like, go trampoline or go cycle or go for a run or go for a walk. But sometimes the last thing you literally want to do, like you literally want to curl up in bed and like close the door and just like be But all that's doing is keeping your energy more stagnant. In order to shift your emotional state of being and your energetic state of being, you need to move the energy or like alchemize it. And so when you go and do any kind of movement or exercise, especially if you can do it outdoors, like a double one. This is why I feel like the whole hot girl walks blew up, or like any kind of like outdoor activity. It's so funny. We live like near the beach, and here like electric bikes are so big. Like everyone's e-biking. I don't know if it's like this where you are, but like e-bikes have gotten basically huge. But like anything that's outside and active, obviously e-bikes kind of like cheating a little bit because you're not having to pedal as much, but you understand what I'm saying. If you could also be outside while doing it is like an even better benefit. And also if you have like a social aspect to it, like literally like if you were going for a walk to go get a coffee and then you socially interact and walk home, just that is healing on so many elements. Of course, the walk itself. I mean, also, this is assuming like the coffee is, good quality coffee that's like tested for heavy metals and tested for mold and is organic and fair trade. Like I'm kind of oversimplifying it. Like my mind obviously goes to like all the parameters, but essentially just movement, sunshine, nature, and social interaction are just those elements are so life changing and so powerful. I remember years ago, I was working with like a kind of like a spiritual therapist, and one thing she told me it was like that she does with clients that she was sharing with me at the time is like if anyone's ever feeling like I don't know depressed, any kind of depressive symptoms or like they're going down a spiral or not feeling good, she tells people for 30 days you need to do like some kind of exercise or movement outside combined with social interaction for an hour a day. So even if that means you have to wake up early or whatever it is, but 1 hour of like doing something active outside and it has a social element to it. And that could be literally like going to the grocery store to grab, I don't know, like a coffee. Like I don't know why that obviously is like such an obvious example to me, or whatever it is, because it's not only getting you outside, right? It's getting you moving, it's getting your energy moving, it's getting you outdoors, you're getting fresh air, and it's reconnecting you socially because we are interconnected beings. And through being in a social web, especially one that's nourishing, is super transformative for us. So I just remember her saying that that's really, really powerful. And so I don't know, so I think movement is so powerful. And I really experienced the opposite end of this weekend because I went to go get my hair done. And so I had to drive, which is like I was like an hour of traffic, LA traffic. Then I was sitting the whole time getting my hair done. Then I sat back when I got home and I was so like my body was so stagnant. And I noticed my thoughts literally felt so stagnant. Like it was like so difficult for me to change from thought versus now if I'm sitting here today, I get a thought that I don't isn't aligned or doesn't serve me, I can just literally pretty quickly, where can I do it? I can really quickly really release it, because I can feel energy really circulating through my body and energy's moving quickly. And because I have this kind of momentum, so to say, right, it's much easier to release that thought. On Saturday, I felt like my thoughts were so like rocks. Like it was like so difficult for me to move. If I had a thought and I wanted to pivot from that thought, it literally felt like I was like lifting a rock 100 times my size versus normally it feels like, I don't know, like a grain of salt to move, just to kind of give you a metaphor. And that really illustrated to me why movement is so powerful. I know a lot of people like, I think it's also reassigning meaning to movement. Like for me, when I do movement, I do it because I like how I feel. I like how I feel. I know I literally can feel how my energy shifts. I can feel also how good it feels on my body. It's kind of crazy. Like my body now is way more like really needs to be stretched consistently because I do pole, which is really I do it for fun. I take classes and perform and things like that. But it's really a lot on your body. It's so much on your body, on your back, on everything, on your shoulders, your arms, like your abs. Like it's a full body workout. And so you really need to stretch. I noticed that ever since I've been doing that, which is a lot, I've been needing to stretch way more. So it feels really good on my body just to like open up and expand and release, but I feel such a huge mental shift. I feel such a huge emotional shift. I feel so much more grounded in my body. And so the meaning of movement to me is so multifaceted. It's not just like, oh, I'm just gonna like work out to get like tone, or like I'm gonna work out to look hot and lose weight. Like it's so much deeper than that, which is I feel like why I'm very committed to. I think when people only assign meaning to working out of like they're losing weight or something like that, I mean that can also be powerful, of course, but it's the anchor isn't as like big or as deep versus if it's like if you know that you're doing it for your emotional well-being and for your body to feel good and for your thoughts to be clear and for you to have energy and to feel grounded in your body and to feel nourished, and of course to have a great physique, maybe of course there's throw that in. There's nothing wrong with desiring that. You're gonna have such a much more stable base to go back to it. So on days where I don't want to do it, it's not just like, because if you're just doing it because you're like, oh, I want to look good, and then you kind of already achieved some level of fitness, then it's so much easier to be like, oh, I don't need to do it anymore. But if it's rooted in it's how I feel good emotionally and physically and mentally, that's something that you're going to want to commit to daily. So for me, having a really strong why for my movement practice is what keeps me really anchored into it. It's not just for one reason, right? It's for so many reasons. It like helps me in so many facets. And also I think changing your movement, having a variety of different things. I think obviously when you just do one thing, you can get bored. So for me, I used to love cycling, okay? Back in the day, I was like a cycle queen. I used to go literally almost every day, like I don't know, at least 5 times a week, I would say. I had like an unlimited pass at my cycle bar. This was literally years ago. Like in the first few years I moved to LA, and I was like obsessed. Like I don't know if anyone else has gone through this phase. Like I feel like it's a phase. Like honestly, you start cycling and you love it. You're like in the dark room with a lot of music. It's just like a fun environment. I feel like a lot of people get really into it. So I had that phase, and I had like a Pilates phase. My Pilates phase, I still love Pilates, but like I was like obsessed with it. I had a hot yoga obsession phase. I think that's like normal. We try so many things that we find different things we love, but I feel like the golden sauce is to find a few things that you really love. So for me, I love a lot of things. My main things I love, I guess my 4 favorite kinds of movement is Pilates, yoga, cycling, and then like dance or pole. I mean, it's like pole dancing, right? So those are like my 4 movement, and I like that I have that variety. So for me, I cycle sync, which means I change my workouts depending on what part of my cycle I'm in. If you want to really go deeper into your womanhood, into a feminine awakening, into womb healing, into using your sensual and sexual energy and magnetism for radiance and all those things, you should really consider taking my course, The Feminine Awaken, also an instant access course. It goes so deep into like feminine esoteric arts, like feminine embodiment, all like that juicy like goddess goodness oozing, like that's that course is called The Feminine Awaken. But I cycle sync to my cycle, right? So for example, when I'm ovulating, like right now, I can do more high intensity workouts. Like I would probably right now really enjoy cycling, right? Because your testosterone is higher. And so I love, this is like when I would be doing those kind of peak exercises, or if I'm at pole, I would be training more difficult tricks at this time, or doing like more difficult tricks. I would be probably attempting more difficult tricks. I could last longer, so I could train for longer. I could do like stack classes or do things where I know my body has that energy to do way more. Then, and I like Pilates because I feel like you can do it all cycle long, which I find why a lot of women really resonate with Pilates is because they realize like that it feels good always. Like when you're ovulating, Pilates feels really, really good because you have a lot of strength. You can maybe you can put more weight, or you can make the movements more challenging or progressed. And then when you're like I still do Pilates like when I'm on my period, I still love it. Like I don't know, my body still loves it. That's what I love about Pilates. And I like personally, I mean, I think floor Pilates is great too. I like reformer Pilates personally, and I just literally do my own combination. I took so many Pilates classes for so long that I've learned quite a few combinations. So we have a reformer at home, which because I feel like if you're gonna commit, if you're done Pilates for a long time and you already can kind of like self-guide yourself and you know a lot of moves and you're gonna stick to it for a long time, that I think it can be really worth the investment. But for me, like Pilates is kind of like foundational. And then yoga I love as well. I like kind of do like yoga stretching combo, I guess you could say, and I do that as a base. So like if I'm feeling that I will do if I'm like sore, like let's say I did cycle the day before, or like did really test Pilates the day before, that I will go back to like my Pilates yoga. During my luteal phase, I'll stick to this usually, or when I'm menstruating, I can stick to this. When my body needs like a little bit of an easy, like a little bit more rest, I do a very gentle, like literally, like it's like one flow on each side, basically with some stretching. And then of course pole, like I said, if I adjust depending on how I am. So if I'm like in my luteal phase, normally I probably wouldn't do as many intense tricks. Sometimes I get a little brazy and I still do it, but essentially different kinds of movement for different parts of your cycle I think is really important, and just so you have variety. So then on the days where you're like, I'm not really feeling like doing, let's say you're only doing cycling right now, for example, then it's really understandable how before your period or on your period, you're like, I do not want to cycle. Like obviously, most likely you're not going to want to. And people and women, I feel like feel bad because like, why don't I want to work out during the time? Am I lazy? Blah, blah, blah. Not everyone. this is my Capricorn moon speaking, but if you know that I have a different workout for different times when I'm needing different things, you're way more likely to stick to it. So just consider doing other things. And so many, and now like, I mean, I mostly work out at home. At home, I have a Peloton at home. I feel like a lot of us got that during during that shutdown. But if I know some people like going to studios. For me, I just like doing things at home other than obviously pole. I mean, I have a pole at home, but I actually need to get a different one. But I like going to classes. But for me, I don't know if like if you're in a busier city, for me to like drive and like take a class and drive back and shower and like do the whole thing, it takes so much out of my day. So I think like doing home workouts is great. I used to do like home like watch videos and do Pilates, like just mat Pilates before I had a reformer too. So there's so many things that you can do that are like so simple. Like for example, you could literally just have a yoga mat at home, get a non-toxic one. I like the brand it's called Manduka, Manduka. I'll see if I can find like some sort of like discount code link for you guys. But just like having a mat, like you could stretch on that, you could do yoga on that, you could do floor Pilates, you could like get a few things to enhance your workout, like get like a Pilates ball, you could get some bands, you could get some like ankle weights. Like I used to do that for like a long time. I just had like the ankle weights, you know, the ball ankle weights, and then I would put them on my feet and do different moves with them. I should like add those in actually to like my other stuff. Like I'm like, I should really add that into my like even on my reformer, I feel like it'd be good to put them on. But anyway, so just give myself an idea. But like I did a lot of floor stuff. Like I said, following along to YouTube, there's so many videos, there's like so many videos on YouTube for different workouts. So you don't have to get crazy fancy. You don't have to like get yourself to drive to like a gym all the time unless you like that. There's just so much you can do at home. Like I said, I used to always just do yoga, stretching at home, plus watch different like Pilates videos or like things like that online, right? So there's many options, because I feel like all people feel overwhelmed. They're like, oh, I'm not doing it right, or I'm not doing the right workout. Like it's like two things. It's like just find workouts that suit you at different times of your cycle, and two, find ones that like you personally like. So if you're someone who likes taking classes and likes going to the gym, then maybe you like during first parts of your cycle you do more like weights, and then like the second part of your cycle you like take more like yoga Pilates classes. If you're someone like me who'd rather maybe do it at home, maybe just save time and you just want to be able to do it at home, then maybe you do like you go on like a run during your ovulatory phase, or you do like a really fast long walk, and then maybe during the other parts of your cycle you do like gentle yoga or Pilates, or during your like first half of your cycle you're doing like more intense depends how you consider your cycle, but let's say like during your follicular and ovulatory phase you're doing, which some people call like the second half, that's why I'm saying that, but you do like more high intensity Pilates, you put like your ankle weights on, like you have like your other weights, you're like doing like an at-home workout that's more intense. And then as you get into the other part of your cycle, like your luteal and your menstrual phase, you might like not like put the weights down and not incorporate the weights down. You might take your ankle weights off or use a smaller weight, and you just adjust your workout. So when it feels like there's a big barrier to entry, we're way less likely to do something. But the more that we can like break something down and simplify it, there's a higher chance that we're going to continue along with that. So find the workouts that you like, find ones that you like at different parts of your cycles, that you know that if you're not energetically up for workout A, you have workout B ready and lined up. And also just don't be hard on yourself, right? And adjust your workouts, find what suits you. Like for me, I wouldn't want to go drive, for example, 30 minutes to go take a class and then drive back, shower and get ready. Like that is already like, just that itself is like a blocker to me. So for me, like I prefer doing workouts at home. Maybe for someone else, they're not motivated to do them at home. They don't find it fun to do it at home, and they don't want to do it at home. So for them to feel excited, then they need to go take a class and maybe even have like, and do that. Also, of course, I do love classes. I love the community aspect of classes, because especially if you go to one studio a lot. Like for me, at my pole studio, I'm really close friends with all the girls there, and I love it. And I remember when I used to cycle, I remember when I used to go to Pilates and hot yoga, you like see the same people, and you really do form a community, and that I think can really hold you accountable and can keep you really inspired too. The next thing I want to speak about is environment. And what I mean by that is the people and places and situations you're surrounded by. I'm so passionate about this one, you guys, because it influences you so much more than you think, and on such a deep subconscious level. Who you're surrounded by are the people that you're taking advice from. It's like the images of the mind that your subconscious is taking in. It's what your brain is believing that this is normal, this is reality. This is why people say, like, surround yourself with people who you want to be like, or people say, I like the quotes, it's like, surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, or where you want to go. I've heard that somewhere. I find that so powerful as well. Or like, never, don't be the smartest person in the room. Like, have people that you want to learn from and grow with, and etc. And I find that so powerful. And people, I think, do not realize this until they're out of situations. I think that people stay with friends with people, or stay in situations, or participate in activities that don't serve them, because it is so deeply ingrained that that's the norm in their life. Like, let's say like they're the same friend group, and the friend group's doing the same stuff every weekend, and it just feels easier for that person to do that than to maybe like sit on their own, or to like, I don't know, like, yeah, like go somewhere on their own, or to break away from those patterns, right? Like, for example, if someone's in a friend group and they're go out every Friday, let's say, for example, it's like their pattern. Then on a Friday, when like that person's friends invite them out, they're gonna be way more likely to say yes to that than to break the loop and break the pattern and be like, today I'm going to, I don't know, like go for a walk instead, or I'm gonna like listen to an audiobook, or I'm gonna like stay at home and like take a course that's going to inspire me. Like, I'm going to do something to better myself. I'm going to, I don't know, clean my space, listen to podcasts, cook a nourishing meal, get some groceries. Like, see for that person in their life. And I feel like I said, people see this later rather than sooner. They see it like later. They're like, oh, that didn't serve me, or whatever it is. But I feel like if you can have the awareness when you're in that, to like, I know this sounds like cliche, but to listen to your soul, if you feel like you're in a situation or in a group or with friends that you feel like this just doesn't resonate with me, and sometimes you feel like you're like the oddball out, you're the only one. And I know that's like, 'cause I feel like I definitely experienced that when I had like a transition friendships. Like, I realized like, okay, these activities, people aren't serving me. Then you kind of feel maybe like a little bit lonely for a while, but then you find your people, and the only way you find your people is through making space for them. For me, as soon as I kind of released and like people, place, situations that didn't serve me, it maybe took some time, but I've now attracted such like-minded, to a crazy degree, like-minded friends and people and situations, that it's like unbelievable. And they're definitely, like I said, is that transition phase. It's not like you say bye to your toxic friends, for example. I was kind of dramatic, but like, and then immediately like new friends pop up. You definitely have to sometimes like hold that space and really stay in your own. But I just feel like I see people, and that have this nicely, that have so much potential for growth and opportunity and various levels of success in different things, that because of the groups that they're in, or the people and the environments that they're in, I should say the environments, not even just like one person, but the environments that they're in, they're consistently stuck in patterns. So they're like doing like them as an individual, if they were just like removed from that environment for however long, would probably come to such very different conclusions, and maybe hear their desires more clearly, or hear their inner voice more clearly. But because they're in these groups or these environments, they're like almost becoming like suffocated by them. And we as human beings like growth, right? And so it's important for us to be around others, I believe, who are also on a journey of consistently bettering themselves, of growing and of expanding, so that when you connect with your friends, you feel uplifted. This is the biggest like sign, I think, is like when you can feel a difference when you hang out with someone and you feel like drained and like overwhelmed and chaotic and like genuinely like, what the fuck just happened, versus when you hang out with friends and you feel so uplifted and like just so aligned and so inspired. And until you experience that contrast, and I promise you it exists, like I remember specific people who I'd hang out with, and I after just would literally just feel like drained and just like what. And then other friends where you hang out with them and you feel like, oh my gosh, we're so on the right track, and you have inspiring conversations, and you are doing things that are so aligned and just like so you and so soul fulfilling. And that's, so I just really recommend that you just kind of like scan your environment and just like genuinely like just do it lightly. Like, so like, I don't know, you could just do it through your days. Like, as you move through your day, as you're about to engage in any activity, just like lightly pulling back and asking yourself, like, is this activity in alignment? It's environment in alignment with where I want to go and who I want to become. And it's like a very gentle, and you might start realizing little by little where you want to say no more. You might realize like, oh no, like this actually doesn't serve me, or like this activity or this experience actually doesn't serve me. It's just, and it all starts with awareness. That's like the most beautiful thing, is it just starts with having that awareness. Someone invites you to something, and instead of just saying yes because it's like convenient, or it's with your friends or whatever it is, like ask yourself, like, is this going to add value to my life? Is this going to help me become the person I want to become? Or other reflective questions like this, like, is a version of me tomorrow going to be proud of this decision? Things like that, essentially, where you're like looking future forward retrospectively and seeing if that add anything to your life. And I think just through that, you can really see the people, places, situations, experiences, engagements, whatever it is in your reality that are not serving you. And by eliminating those or moving away from those or changing those, you're going to see such huge shifts, because I see this so much. Like I literally like I could give like thousands of examples where someone is just in an environment which is like so deeply embedded in their subconscious that it's influencing their behaviors, their decisions, the way they show up in the world, the way they like present themselves, and so much more, and like the activities they participate in, where like that is not really what's in alignment for that individual, but because it's like all that that person is seeing mirrored around them, it's like you're stuck in this like the visual I'm getting is kind of crazy. It's like if you're in a room and it's like circular and it's all mirrors, and so it's like and all those people are just like mirrors, and so like that's all you see. You like look and you're like, oh, this is all that exists, this is what everyone's doing, this is just like normal. And then but then it's like you're just like in this like dome, like this like circuit, like you're standing here, it's like a circular shape, and yet outside of this like little mirror like you kind of like U curve thing is a whole other reality, and people are inside that U curve shaped little thing thinking like this is all there is, like this is just how things are, like this is what people do, this is what people think, this is what's true, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is how life is essentially, right? And because that's where their focus is, much deeper metaphysics, that's what they see, that's what they perceive, that's the meaning that they assign, and so that's like the reality that they live in. When outside of that little like mirrored sphere is a whole other world, a whole other world of things completely different. And so I think it's really important that we as beings analyze our environment and really listen to our body when making decisions if something feels right or wrong for us. Final thing, which I feel like kind of relates to this, is community slash inspiration slash support. I made a post about this as well, but we are as beings interconnected. And if you ever have studied or looked at the blue zones, if you don't know what that is, blue zones are places on the earth where they have the longest life expectancy. There's a lot of studies being now done on them. And one of the biggest things, obviously I think they look at diet as well, but one of the biggest common denominators of these places is like a tribe or a community or very strong community. And we as beings are meant to have community. It's literally how we thrive. It's why back in the day, why we had tribes and why things were so community oriented, and why I feel like why a lot of cults begin is because people like have this deep longing for a community, so then that can easily be manipulated by people, if that makes sense as well. Like we love to be a part of something, I feel like it's bigger than ourselves, and to connect with people who are like-minded. I just think that it's just like in our DNA. And our world today, I feel like, especially with like I love social media, don't get me wrong, but I think what's really occurred is like this very divisive, very like propaganda oriented vibe where people just feel like so like just fighting for themselves essentially. And there's like this really false community. Like people want community so bad that they conform and maybe agree with things or say or don't say things to fit in. But authentic community where you really see and like feel loved and seen and heard and appreciated and understood, I think it's something that we really, really deeply desire. And I think that's growing now. I think people are realizing this and realizing like the importance of it and the wholeness that that creates. And the whole like, I can do it all alone, like I don't need anybody, is like very self-destructive, because like I said, we are community beings, whether that's through friendship or partnership or literally like whatever, any other community. That's what gives us like such a deep sense of, I feel like, well-being and purpose and wholeness. The word that I'm looking for is wholeness. And when we don't feel that wholeness from our community and from our surroundings, then people search for it in different places. And maybe like, I don't know, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever it is, like people try to find that same sense of wholeness in activities that maybe are very self-destructive, when really it's all around us. And of course, the kind of caveat is that like we can really only find authentic community by being authentically ourselves, and that for a lot of people is very scary, right? And I can totally see why, because of conditioning and judgment and childhood and like everything else that's in that basket. But essentially the only way that we find our people is through being ourselves, right? And I feel like once you start being yourself more, which sounds so cliche, be yourself, no, but like genuinely radically showing it like as who you are, saying your opinions, like I feel like I've like reprogrammed myself so much over the past few years where I just like fully show up as myself. But it's kind of like it's a little bit too intense sometimes because I'm so used to it with you guys or on podcasts or like with clients or in courses. So when I go into my daily world, like I don't know, I'm like I just say like I forget to kind of have like a barrier. Like I was like at the vet with Mia the other day, and the vet kind of like asked me like kind of a funny question. It was, I don't really want to get into it, but I just replied like very like bluntly, and I was even like shocked at myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, like whoa, like I guess like maybe I should like have a little bit of a filter. But I mean, what my point there is that by being authentically yourself is how you're gonna find people who relate to you. That does mean that you're probably gonna be more polarizing, 100%. But I always say this: when you're more polarized, that you're also more magnetic. You are more you, and you're more strong maybe in your beliefs or whatever you're sharing. And obviously, this does not mean like be rigid or be like hateful or like don't be open-minded. It just means like the more you are the less vanilla you are, the less just like agreeable and you are, the more you're just genuinely sure whatever it is you think, then that's gonna of course can be repelling, but it's also gonna be magnetizing because people who agree with you are gonna flock to you. That's why we see a lot of people in our society who are really polarizing on various sides, but why people are so magnetized to them is because people are sick of everyone being so like neutral and like PG and kosher and like trying not to offend anyone. Like the truth is like people are going to get offended at things, and sometimes we have to get offended to grow. We have to realize like actually this comment is actually probably true, and it's probably why I'm annoyed, and maybe like instead of me just being offended by it and telling someone else not to say what they're saying, I should maybe look at why I'm being triggered by it, which I know is a lot easier said than done. But why people are so drawn to these polarizing people is because they're finally they feel like finally someone is like stepping outside of that like neutral granola kosher kind of line and saying something that they truly believe in. And so yes, like obviously that can lead to extremes that people I feel like are really looking for those who are saying what everyone else is afraid to say. A good example is I know like Jordan Peterson has like such a huge following, and he says some kind of pretty very polarizing things, but I think finally people wanted someone to say those things that a lot of other people were thinking. And we see this with a lot of different examples in our culture, in our society, right? We see people who say really maybe intense things, but it's because a lot of people are thinking those things and feel like they can no longer say those things. And I know that like and a lot of people get canceled for that's for just crazy, right? For saying kind of those things. And so essentially, like by being more you, even though it may be scary, and obviously you can change it depending on the environment. It doesn't mean like be inappropriate or anything like that. I'm just saying the more you really share what you truly believe and what you truly think, even when it's scary, the more you open the door for someone else who has those same beliefs to connect with you on a much deeper level. Because honestly, this is not even like I'm not even trying to make this a plug, but this is genuinely why I created Divinity, which is like my monthly membership, because I find that community is so important and like-minded community is so important. And so many of you guys who probably are inside Divinity, you understand how powerful it is because it's a membership of people from all over the world, where every month we come together for 2 ceremonies or rituals or workshops. They're different every month. For example, this month, tomorrow or November 8th, we'll have a lunar eclipse ceremony. And then on the 26th, we'll have a financial abundance ceremony and ritual. So every month they're different. But because you have this space, you have this community of people who are like-minded. And especially, I feel like in terms of like spirituality, that's something that a lot of us are looking for, people who have the same views on life and energy and the way things work and being aware and mindful, whatever it may be. And so that's why I feel like it's so powerful, why Divinity is growing and it's so exciting, is because people want that space. And I know I created it because it's something I wanted. I literally made Divinity because I would look back and I'm like, I wish I had that, like a monthly membership where I could come and connect with like other women and men who are also like on their own journey and consciously creating and are into rituals, into manifestations, all these things that just come together twice a month to co-create with that group. Like how amazing. And of course we have the live events, but I know people are in all the different parts of the world, so we have the recording. So even if you can ever come live, to know that you have that recording, that sacred like space for yourself to do the ritual or the workshop or whatever it is that's going on. I think it's just so powerful, and even if it's virtual. Another thing I want to say, of course, an in-person community is amazing. I like 100%, but the beauty now, what I think is really cool, is that we can also find community online. And obviously it's different finding genuine community, but I think that's really beautiful that now online we can even connect virtually, and those connections are equally as deep and real. I know the connections that I have with the women and men inside Divinity, or my clients or girls and men who have been in courses, like it's such a soul connection. It's no different than if it was an in-person connection. I mean, obviously there are going to be some differences, but they're deep essentially is what I'm saying. And I find that that's something that we really need to kind of like consider. And that in that I wrote inspiration and support, or like community slash inspiration slash support. And these communities should be places where you feel inspired, essentially, is another thing. I think some people, there's a difference between like having community, people have a friend group, and all those people do is like complain and just enable each other, right? Because someone could say, oh, that's community. Well, that community is not really like an inspiring community, right? We're wanting the community to have an element of inspiration where you feel lifted up. And yes, of course, in any community, there might be times where it's less inspiring, but overall, it should be a space where you're feeling inspired. You like, this community or this group really lifts me up and makes me feel nourished and loved and supported and all these other aspects, right? Again, that also means support. It's a space where you feel really held and where you can really be yourself, and where you feel like you have like kind of just like, I have this visual of like all these hands just like kind of holding you energetically. That's kind of other element to that I find really, really important. So yeah, I just wanted to speak about this overall number one movement, 2, environment, 3, community slash inspiration slash support. And like I said, I know it's not always easy to find. And genuinely, I mean, I'm sure there's so many other options, but this is generally why I created Divinity, because I find that that community aspect was something that I felt like I was missing, and I wanted to share my practices with other people. And I was just so cool to see how many other people from all over the world were really yearning or desiring that same thing. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up today's episode. I hope you found this inspiring. If you're still listening, be sure to tag me on Instagram. I always say this, but I love reposting you guys when you're listening to the podcast, and I love seeing all the different things you're doing when you're listening. Some of you are like on the beach, some of you are walking your dog, some of you guys are cooking, some of you guys are cleaning, some of you are driving. I see girls who like screen time when you're driving, so I just love seeing what you're doing when you share this. It means so much. Also, feel free to send this podcast to someone who you feel like this would really resonate with them. Maybe it's a friend, your mom, a cousin, a coworker, someone who you feel like would really appreciate this message today, someone who you feel like would really resonate with this and who needs to hear some of these things. Send this podcast their way so that they can also hear these messages, so we can allow our podcast to grow and evolve. The more we share, like when you share a podcast, it means so much to me, because it allows you, who knows, just even like 2 people who might listen to it from you sharing it, or more, and it might be literally the caveat, or the catalyst that really changes their day and that changes their path and their journey, and could really spark so much in them. So you never know, through you sharing, what the power of that like continuous seed can do. And that's why I find it so amazing to share, and I really appreciate when you share the podcast. Also, if you ever have a minute to rate the podcast, it really helps us out. So if you could just rate it, if you have a moment, I would love that. And the final 2 announcements are, if you can see I'm wearing right now, this is the Angelic Guidance necklace from the new Eclipse Lift Your Frequency collection, freshwater pearl. And then right here, you see it has clear quartz like near the clasp on both sides, and then it has a clear quartz on the bottom. We are shipping your Eclipse orders. I'm about to, after this podcast, actually go make some of the Lift Your Frequency orders. So if you haven't gotten your order in, get your order in so I can make it and have it out to you as soon as possible. This one's like one of my favorite ones. If you're watching the video, you see it, but it's like so stunning. We have 4 beautiful pieces in the new collection, and they're all amazing. With that being said, again, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll also have the Radiant Reset down below. I'm so excited for you to try the Radiant Reset. I know it's going to be something that's going to be so transformational in your life. It's going to add so much value, and it's going to be something that you continuously go back to. So if you have not already downloaded it, definitely download that. I'm just like, I am at a loss for words how excited I am about it. So yes, I am so excited to connect with you further. Also, tomorrow is the lunar eclipse ceremony. I'm hosting inside Divinity, and if you aren't inside Divinity, you can also grab a one-time ticket. I'll have information for that down below, full replay or full recording included. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode, and I will see you next week on Unlimited Abundance.